Welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm Jake Fisher.
I'm Gabe Shenor.
And we bought a Cybertruck.
We did.
We bought a Tesla Cybertruck.
How crazy is that?
We ordered it in December of 2019.
You bet.
And it just arrived. Well, we had to go pick it up. And we'll talk about that later. It's a 2024 Tesla Cybertruck all-wheel drive Foundation Series. 600 horsepower. It's the dual motor, one-speed direct drive, all-wheel drive. The MSRP on it was about $80,000, but it came with the Foundation Series. And in addition to getting a cool Isaac Asimov reference on the side, on the badging, it also comes with full self-driving and a couple other accessories, and that costs $20,000. Essentially, it lets you cut the line and get one of the first ones
that's
out there.
the only version you can get now. And the Foundation's basically like, in another case, would be like first edition.
Exactly, like Kenny Rogers. But we're here, $102,000 basically is how much this thing costs. There's a lot to talk about. A lot has already been said about the Cybertruck. A lot of those things are things that we don't cover here at Consumer Reports, but I think it's important to address the elephant in the room, kind of right off and then move on and talk about things otherwise. It's a controversial vehicle, I've heard. I've heard that people have some opinions about this.
Yeah, there could be some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because, this is a vehicle that obviously stands out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, it's like, you could, get a Lamborghini or something. It's totally going to stand out. This is the first time like a truck. I suppose you could lift a truck really high and that would stand out too. But from the factory, this thing obviously doesn't look like anything else on the road.
Mm-hmm. And I think because of that, and also because, I don't think there's any vehicle that indelibly bears the fingerprints of its creator more than this one, and it's not just because of the stainless steel. But this is Elon Musk's vehicle, and a lot of people surprisingly have opinions about Elon Musk, which is interesting. And I think what's important about this in terms of the driving perspective, some of those people think he's a visionary truth teller. Some of them think that he's a conspiracy theorist and a bigot. And both of those types of people are going to talk to you and interact with you when you drive this car, I found.
Well, I think look, part of it obviously is Elon Musk, who is controversial, but obviously has accomplished a whole lot. But it's more than that. It's also electric. There's controversy about electric.
Exactly.
It's a giant truck. There's controversy about that. So basically, it's kind of like, look, it's big, it's loud, it's different. And if you are the type of person who just wants to go to the supermarket and go back home and not talk to a group of people who have many varied opinions, probably not the vehicle for you.
Yeah, I got many digits pointed at me, and you can guess which ones they were. Thumbs ups, thumbs down. It was actually super cool to see like little kids pointing at it the way that I would have pointed at like a Countach when I was a kid.
Right.
Or like, someone seeing something cool out there. And also at the same time, I've been covering Tesla almost my entire career, and the last thing that I want to do is talk about Elon Musk with strangers. And that's what this car, I come out of Costco, and there are people around it taking photos, and I go and hide behind a Subaru parked next to it until they leave.
So I mean,
Go on.
the reactions varied, from anywhere from total disdain to appreciation. Mostly disdain, but this thing is just the most outlandish, otherworldly creation. You see it, and a lot of people just don't believe like what they're looking at. What is this thing? How did it even get here? So there's such befuddlement about this car that you haven't seen anything like that before.
Honestly, I think that's...
And you know what? Like it or not, there's, like they say, there's no bad press. It gets attention.
Yeah, we're talking about it right now.
Exactly.
Honestly, I think one of the best things about this car is the fact that it is so unique. And it's so unique in a lot of ways. I wish that more car companies, honestly, would do, and we've seen a little from, Kia, from Hyundai, doing some things with their electric platforms, making them really, not boxed into the design constraints. Yep. And I wish more car companies would do something like this. At the same time, there's also a lot of really unique things about the vehicle, and that's why we're gonna test it like any other vehicle. That's the last we're gonna talk about Elon Musk. That's the last we're gonna talk about any of that.
Well, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, look, we test vehicles, right? We do not test styling.
No,
now we have this rubric on how we, assess vehicles. We're looking at reliability. We're looking at safety and how it drives. We do not put into the styling. The styling is not part of it. And you're right. There's a lot of cars that look really good these days, and there's some that are a little frumpy, but it's not in the ratings. But we do talk about driving experience, and this is one vehicle that you can't escape that part of the driving experience. You have to be an extrovert.
Yeah, and we evaluate the consequences of styling in terms of functionality, such as visibility or access.
Yeah, which is important, or such as whether you can injure yourself on the sharp sides of the panels. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. So, I mean, I think we should just sort of start from the beginning here. Gabe, you picked this up. And the Tesla delivery experience, for those who haven't bought one in a while or ever, I remember the days when it was like special. Tesla would show up and it was this big deal. And then there were the delivery centers where you go, and it felt like, it felt special. It felt like, you were in boarding group 1. And now it didn't feel like that, right?
Right. Boarding group 6.
Okay. Everyone else, gate check your bag.
10 years ago, our Model S was delivered right here. It was like beautiful. Then we went to some Tesla centers and picked up Model 3s and Ys and whatnot. In this case, I mean, it was awful. I mean, you come in, even though you have a specific appointment, date and time, and you arrive and nobody greets you, nothing. You stand in line in front of a makeshift table that looks like a neighborhood lemonade stand. And you are handed then a pile of paper. You're sent to a bench somewhere to sign them. And given that, they were all wrong and I had to change everything there, that's besides the point. But yeah, I mean, the contempt for the customer is unreal. I mean, and I chatted with other people there, and it was the same kind of experience.
Well, look, I mean, and not everyone is going to pick up their Cybertruck at the exact same location that we purchased it in on the East Coast, obviously. Right. So, I mean, your mileage will vary. I sincerely hope there are much better delivery centers elsewhere in the country, but our experience wasn't great.
Right.
Yeah. And also, to get something out of the way, when we picked up the car, there was a nice big error message already on it. And we were told, perfectly fine, drive the car, nothing wrong with it. Now, to be fair, we're not going to put this thing into our full testing regimen until we get that error message taken away.
Right.
It had to do with the steering.
Right.
It said that there was a steering alignment issue, and the first person we talked to at the service center said, totally fine, we checked it out, you're good to go, no problem, ignore it, it'll be gone with a software update. Then we call Tesla and they say, well, that shouldn't be there. So we put all of our cars on the alignment rack. We make sure they're all aligned before we test them. We're not going to test a car with an error message, but just putting that out there that, a little bit of half-bakedness here. So the driving experience, when you get in this car, I liken it to, if anyone's ever been to another country where they drive on the other side of the road and you pick up your rental car and you're driving out of the airport and you're like, wait, where am I? And Jake, you can maybe explain why that is. Well, there's a couple of reasons, right?
I mean, it's a couple of reasons. I mean, it certainly seems very different, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the, glass area, it's very, very different. You got the windshield that's like a plane of glass, but it's huge. You have quite a panoramic view out. But, to your point, getting into a different planet or a different, something I'm not used to. Honestly, if you came out of another Tesla, in many ways, you're going to feel right at home. So, I mean, first of all, the controls are very similar to what you might experience on a Tesla Model S or a Tesla Model 3.
Yeah, just download those podcasts and listen if you want to learn more about that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, there's, very similar controls. You could either love it or you could hate it. There's certainly a learning curve. But I think maybe the most interesting part is how it drives. And this is a huge vehicle. Let's get that out of the way. It is large. It is heavy. It doesn't drive that way. So when you drive around kind of every day with it, I mean, first of all, it's got a rather small steering wheel. You know, you'd expect this giant truck is kind of this big truck driver, you know, kind of thing. It doesn't have that. It feels somewhat nimble despite its large size. I mean, and part of it is probably because that very responsiveness. It's got tons of power. So, I mean, just it's almost, I don't know if nimble is too much for it, but it's like the steering is responsive. It's certainly got a lot of power. It's kind of, I mean, as long as you're not in a small area out on the road, it does feel kind of like a big Model 3.
Yeah, that's so many people have said about it who've driven it. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just build up on that a little bit. I mean, the steering ratio is so unheard of quick. I mean, it's less than one turn between lock to lock. So from one end of the steering to the other, it's less than one turn. Usually, for most cars, it's about 3 or 2.5 turns lock to lock. Here, it's almost like a race car. So it makes the car feel really nimble at high speed, but the ratio is very variable. So depending on all kinds of speed and all, so it gives you a response that's not always predictable. So it's in like normal urban, suburban type speeds, it's really, you find yourself really getting too much turn-in response. And so it makes it really easy to clip a corner or worse, you know, take out your neighbor's mailbox.
So you're going to end up on social media. Someone is filming you parallel park. I mean, I've seen tons of these videos.
You're always being filmed.
Yeah,
but it's it's a flip side of that nimbleness is that it's not very predictable. So it doesn't give you the confidence you want. You always have to check yourself. You always have to correct something.
So for those who don't know, just want to cut in and say this vehicle is the first to come out with a pure steer-by-wire system. So Jake, if you want to explain that.
I just want to kind of like break that apart, right? This is a little bit of the steering is kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because or it's like a box of chocolates. You don't ever really know what you're going to get because it is a steer-by-wire. My first experience with a steer-by-wire
without a redundant system,
no physical connection.
No physical
I know
connection.
Infiniti had one with a, you know,
but it's like it's variable ratio to the max, right? So when you're driving just normally down the road, it is very, very good. It feels nimble. Feels like a Model 3. The issue is when you start kind of turning more, you know, in kind of like a parking lot situation or something like that, it goes from normal to just really turning the wheels very, very quickly because, exactly like you said, the entire turning doesn't go very far. So what happens?
And there's rear wheel steering.
And there's rear wheel steering. So the issue is that you might get used to this. You're driving down the road. It's fine. I know what it's like. That all of a sudden you're parking the car or you're coming out of a driveway or you're coming onto the road. And you get to a certain point and you have no idea how much you've turned because it very much quickly changes. So essentially, you know, you're coming out of a, you know, I wouldn't say gas station, but a convenience store and, you know, or a driveway or something. And you get onto it and you basically look like an amateur driver because it may turn too much. And yeah, you could hit you know, curb or mailbox or something.
Now, I was amazed at how maneuverable it was in tight spaces because at first I was like, oh, I can't see anything out of here. Where am I going? Where is it? And then very quickly you get used to the looking in the side mirror and looking at the rear steer and see where it's going and comparing that to the parking line. So that didn't take a whole lot of getting used to.
Well, you're a better driver than I am. I'm going to say that because backing up this beast was one of the most stressful things that I have ever encountered.
So this has a 360-degree surround camera like cheap cars, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, okay. Yes, it has a lot of cameras.
But yeah, I mean, I could get a Nissan Sentra and I could see kind of that overhead view. Here I can't. But the problem is that in a Nissan Sentra, I could look behind me. This, you really can't see much behind you at all. Because one, you got that little tiny rear view mirror. It's very, very small, but the rear glass is very small. If the tonneau is up, it's completely covered. From my view, I pretty much see the road. I don't even see the cars behind me. It's got a rear camera that goes in the screen, but it almost makes me a little nauseous looking at that.
Absolutely.
It's like watching a video.
I can't do the
and you can't
camera
really
thing,
make out the cars behind you. And then it's got these big buttresses behind you that blocks a lot of the vision. So,
and it's so cab forward that even in the front, you don't necessarily know where the front of the vehicle is.
You can't tell where the vehicle ends on any part of this vehicle. So look, I mean, a lot of people don't like to back into spots. I mean, a lot of people don't like to back into spots. They'll go front end. But now you got a vehicle that's huge, and they have a vehicle you really can't see behind you, and vehicle that you kind of, have to learn how to steer. And if you want to use a supercharger, guess what you got to do?
Back in.
You got to back in probably between two very expensive cars with people sitting in the cars too. So it becomes very, very stressful in those types of situations. Again, driving on the highway, driving on the roads, pretty nice.
About the size, let's just put it in perspective. It's about the same length as a regular full-size crew cab pickup truck or Chevy Suburban.
And it has a bigger bed than most of the trucks the same size.
Yeah.
And it has a nice,
by virtue of being so
interior.
cab forward,
Yeah.
that you have a lot of that length and to the benefit of the bed.
Yeah, some of the packaging in this vehicle is actually really impressive. Unfortunately, some of the packaging and also the fact that the lack of those cameras, which are really, really necessary in this vehicle, the fact that the cameras don't give you information that's easy to interpret can make it incredibly difficult to.
But I'm going to take you on packaging. So, so I mean, look, you look at pickup trucks. Pickup trucks are unbelievably popular. Why? Because they are very, very useful. They're really, I mean, it's like we've designed this form factor of American pickup trucks, right? And they're kind of the two boxes, I guess 3 boxes, right? If you consider the box bed. And they're super functional. They're super functional. There's so much room inside these vehicles. And you look at something like even the electric versions, right? The Rivian or the Ford F-150 Lightning, you look in the front and there's this huge compartment in the front. You look at the rear seats. It's huge. There's so much room in here. This vehicle does not have that much room. It does have that front compartment.
Very small.
It's very small.
Very small, yeah.
You look in the rear, it's much smaller, much less headroom. You almost have to sit down in the rear seats rather than kind of up where there's really good posture that you see in other pickup trucks. And why is that? It's because it's function. It's form first, then function later. Like this car was designed, the exterior of this was designed, and then it's like these really, really smart engineers tried really, really hard to try to figure out how to make that design more functional as opposed to the basic pickup truck, which is like, all right, we want room inside. What's the box that's going to fit that the best?
And if you're going to go to the trouble of remaking the pickup truck, because, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, nothing significant has been invented in terms of pickup trucks for God knows how many decades. So here, I was surprised that, I mean, you have a unified bed and cab, unlike many other body-on-frame pickup trucks where the bed and the cab are 2 different entities.
Yeah.
So here you had the perfect opportunity to have a gate between the bed and the cab.
Like the Silverado EV is going to have. Yep.
20 years ago, the Chevy Avalanche, if you remember. That was brilliant because you have the flexibility to extend cargo into the passenger, or you can turn into a camper or sleeper. So that's a miss.
I completely agree. I mean, and that's the kind of innovation I think that we're expecting from a brand new electric pickup truck. And Rivian, I think, kind of spoiled us because it's like, hey, let's rethink certain things. There's the gear tunnel that you have in the Rivian. You've got certain all these kind of surprise. Hey, why not this? And have the camera, the flashlights here, and there's all these kind of innovations and neat things. It seems like the innovation here is trying to make up for the design. It's almost like you think about a cell phone, right? Cell phones are rectangular, right? For a reason. It was almost like, Tim Cook from Apple said, we're going to make a triangular cell phone. And then you guys designed this so this triangle works.
Wasn't that a plot of The Office?
It was.
I think it was an episode of The Office.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's a different thing. It's innovating around a design as opposed to creating a new design around innovation.
So something I think we need to talk about, because people are talking about this online, is this idea of issues with the truck. So ours showed up. There weren't any big panel gaps. No parts fell off.
Sure.
I will say, there's that big 50-inch windshield wiper, and it has its own unique tires that actually say they actually say Cybertruck on them, but they're Pirelli Scorpions, but they're specially made for the Cybertruck. And this is not something you can just go down to Pep Boys or O'Reilly or AutoZone to pick up at this point. We had some issues with the vehicle recently. One of our drivers got in to go to work, and all of a sudden, bunch of error messages popped up on the screen. And it sort of is now feeling like, is there, but it's important for folks who might be watching this podcast who don't know what Consumer Reports is all about. That's not going to go into our reliability score. These are things that we'll talk about. These are experiences we'll talk about. But we're going to have that sort of the hive mind of all of the owners of these telling us what that reliability score. And I'm not the person to talk about that. If you want to explain a little more about how we're going to deal with this as a unique vehicle, because it does have that drive-by wire. It has an incredibly unique wiring system. It has a unique exterior design.
Yeah. By the way, about the tires. I mean, when I looked at those tires, I thought they were going to be really noisy, and they weren't. I was pleasantly surprised that they weren't emitting that kind of noise that you'd associate with that.
Although that does remind me.
And also, I'd say that in terms of ride comfort, the Cybertruck rides better than the Model Y.
Yeah, I will say, though, that there is some weird noise. There's this sort of electrical whine in it, and I don't know if that's ours or if that's...
And particularly when the rear steer is on, you hear all kinds of whirs and electric motor noises.
Absolutely, but we're gonna wait until we hear owners whining, not the car whining, before we talk about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, let me talk about reliability for a sec, and it's strange when it comes to Tesla. Like, I mean, for Consumer Reports, we have certain judgments about this reliability, and you probably have heard. You may hear more about what other people say the Consumer Reports says about it. So I want to just take the chance of talking about it. So reliability, yes, it doesn't really matter what happens to our specific vehicle, whether that's problem-free or we have a lot of problems with it. It all has to do with the survey. So every year we have approximately 300,000 vehicles in this survey, and we go into it and we look at actual people's experiences. Getting into Tesla is a little bit... I don't want to say bipolar, but a little bit is, because the Tesla Model 3 and the Model Y, which are their mainstream vehicles, are actually fairly reliable. We're recommending them. In fact, the Tesla Model Y is a top pick right now. Mm-hmm. So those are vehicles that are quite good. The issue is that the higher trim vehicles, the Tesla Model S, the Tesla Model X, they continue to have more problems. Again, that's from a lot of people telling us what they have found with their vehicles.
It isn't us having issues with the gull-wing doors. It's hundreds of other people having issues.
And what's interesting about it too is that those S and those X owners, they tell us they actually like their cars and they would buy them again and they're happy with them.
Despite the problems.
Yes. But they are having those problems. So I mean, look, on a vehicle like this, you're probably not buying it because you think it's going to be the most trouble-free vehicle. There's probably other reasons that that you might be interested in.
I don't think anyone's sitting at home waiting for the issue of Consumer Reports to show up to say, should I buy the Cybertruck?
Reliable?
Yeah, I really want to find out what Consumer Reports thinks.
80,000 miles out of it.
Yeah.
But I would say, again, to the point, here you've got kind of a high trim vehicle like the S, like the X. What we found all the time is when there's more stuff new, there's more problems with it. I don't care if it's Tesla, I don't care if it's Toyota. And this has a lot of new stuff.
Incredibly new. Yeah. Like first time ever used in a production vehicle new sometimes.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's going to be really, really interesting.
It will be. But I mean, again, if, I would predict that this is probably not going to be the most reliable vehicle. And if you're looking for something that's very reliable, you might want to look elsewhere.
And hopefully some of those owners will fill out our questionnaire, including some of the 2 million orders that the Cybertruck has now.
Yeah, let's see how many of those convert. I will say we need to talk about also what we're going to, now that we bought this, what we're going to do with it. Because we're not going to, there's enough people out there putting this through challenges and filming it, doing these things. And listen, there's enough layoffs in media. We don't want to take anyone's job. But what are we going to do with this vehicle that's unique to Consumer Reports? Maybe you can talk us through some of our testing process, because I imagine some folks aren't necessarily frequent viewers or frequent listeners who are listening to this episode.
So we're going to put it through exactly the same regimen of testing and evaluation that we do with every single car. So we'll measure the acceleration and the braking distances and the range on the highway at 70 miles an hour, and how easy it is to interact with a car in terms of usability, how easy it is to get in and out of it, and also we'll evaluate it on our Rock Hill. It has adjustable suspension. It theoretically should be able to scale that no problem. And we'll see how comfortable it rides, how quiet it is, etc. So a whole full battery of testing and evaluations.
And you think about things like emergency handling and our avoidance maneuver and all these things. We have this 327-acre test facility here.
Yeah, we're looking at it right outside. Yeah, I'm seeing someone take the Honda Prologue on it right now.
And when we do test these vehicles to the limits, it is on the same surface that all these other vehicles have experience too. So it's not like, let's go see how it does in this autocross in this parking lot, but it's a monitored surface that we make sure that has consistent coefficient of friction and ambient conditions.
Tested by the same people on the same roads, at the same speeds, on the same surfaces. So,
which I don't think, other folks really can't do that with this vehicle. So anything else you want to add, or?
Well, I think there's a lot. The one thing about it is, we talk about the body panels. Because that's important to talk about. I think, seeing it up front and really seeing like the sharp edges on that, it really surprising. And, you look at our vehicle. We look at all these new vehicles, and we're always, we got a bunch of people who check it in and who've worked in body shops. And, sometimes you look at paint and you're like, that paint's not perfect. This is not a perfect vehicle.
No.
And, it'll be interesting to see how the body panels continue to change over time.
Oh, Tesla says mature. They say they mature over time, which is how I would like to refer to my aging process. I'm just maturing. It's just a natural process.
You have a cast iron skillet, you have to kind of like season it. Maybe it needs to be seasoned.
There's something like 30 warnings in the cleaning section about the exterior. And it says things like, although a rust-like surface may appear, your vehicle is not rusting. Do not take it into a car wash. If you must take it to a car wash, put it in car wash mode. So this is going to be I know what it's like to keep my fridge clean. And this is, imagine you're taking your fridge out at 60 miles an hour with bugs splattering on it,
Right.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of fingerprints all over it too. We'll have to figure out how to clean that.
It's interesting to see how many people have put wraps on theirs already. And the other thing too, just little things like cleaning the inside of the windshield.
Yeah, that's right. Because of that windshield is so sloped and that the dashboard is so long. We're trying to figure out how to clean the inside of the windshield. You can't get there from there.
Had to buy a little extender in order to get in there and clean it. But this is going to be an interesting vehicle to live with. I think, we take vehicles home as well after we're finished with the instrumented tests. We live with them for a while. And that's when it's going to be, springtime when I'm putting in some plants. I'm going to take it to the garden center and see what happens. If I need to pick up some rocks and some gravel and stuff, we'll see what happens. We're going to tow with it. We have folks who have boats, who have jet skis, who have campers. And, we're going to see what it's like to live with it. The same way that we've done with the F-150 Lightning, which we found out actually wasn't that great at towing and didn't have that great a range. And we're going to live with this vehicle and see what it's like. And maybe by then there'll be so many on the road that nobody's pointing anymore. We'll update. If you want to learn more about it, we have a first drive review that's up at cr.org. If you sign up for our newsletter, we'll keep you updated when we have more information on it. We're going to have a ton of other videos and other social media posts about it as we have it, and then it's going to go into tests, and we're going to be very quiet for a while, and then all of a sudden we'll have more information. So stay tuned. And if you have any questions about Cybertrucks, about Tesla, about our testing procedure, any of that stuff, please send it to us. We love to answer questions. Send them to us at talkingcars@icloud.com. Another reason to send us a question, if we use it on the show, you're going to get some swag. Which is awesome, some CR swag that you can wear places. And so our first question comes from Phil from Maine. Your unbiased reviews are what I value most about Consumer Reports, and I love that you remind listeners often that you purchase all the vehicles anonymously. But I have to wonder how many different wigs and fake mustache combinations does Mike Quincy own in order to accomplish this? Isn't your staff recognizable at all the local dealerships when you purchase so many cars each year, or when you put the Consumer Reports address as the owner address? And a special thank you to whomever on the staff has to go through that car buying process so often. Well, Phil, we're answering your question this week because Gabe Shenhar is the sort of the man behind the curtain with these. And that reminds me, I have an assignment of a car that I have to buy, and I'm not going to say what it is. Gabe, how does this start, and how do we do this?
Well, of course, we have a whole box of fake mustaches and beards and glasses. But at first I thought people would really care that Consumer Reports buying car, but for the most part, it's like not even on the radar. I mean, the salespeople want to go through the sale. They care about the sale. They care about the commission and getting you out the door. And it's only a rare case where I saw, oh, wow, Consumer Reports, wow, how about that, and got a real kick out of that. But for the most part, it's not even an issue. And now, to the question about revealing who we are. I mean, we are, the whole process is anonymous. The buyers that I assign to buy cars deal with it, dealers on their own email or private phone.
And let me just say, that's actually a good tip for buying a car anyways.
Yep.
Start over email, and also create another email address, because you're going to get a lot of emails. You're going to get a ton of marketing material.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
you can unsubscribe. But anyway, only at the day of delivery, we tell them, hey, we're Consumer Reports. This is how to register the car. Here is our tax exemption. And then everything goes pretty seamlessly from there.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is there's, Ward's Automotive, which is a consulting firm, says, there's a huge turnover in the auto industry, 73% turnover every 2 years. So a lot of the salespeople who you're dealing with aren't going to be working at that dealer the next time you go. It's just and there's about 250 dealerships in Connecticut, and we lived kind of all over the place.
Yep.
And if
you're buying another Honda, it may not be the same Honda dealership, and we make sure that we're not going back to the same place. I honestly think, in my recollection, the only time there was someone, the only concern is like, oh, I know who you are. I think that happened once years ago, and it was actually someone who was a salesperson at a different dealer.
Yes.
Which was kind of interesting. So because, we could avoid going back to the same dealer, but if someone quits and then goes to another dealer and runs into somebody, well, then we got to go pick another dealer and we got to start over.
Yeah,
we'll have to do that.
We've had a few times we've had to pick another dealer if enough people, I saw you on Talking Cars. All right, well, we're going to go to Nissan of X. But to your point, I had a time where I bought a car, and it was after we told them Consumer Reports, and they brought me to the F&I office afterwards, and they said, we made a mistake on your paperwork. The car cost $1,000 more, and you have to buy an extended warranty. So obviously they don't care who we are.
They try to rip us off just as much.
Exactly. That was a fun experience. By the way, walking away, by the time I got to the car, they were running after me, and we sold it. The car was.
Now, if you're wearing the free T-shirt we send you,
yeah, they could think you're a secret shopper,
right?
Just doing a really, really bad job.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, if I show up at a car dealership wearing that would be, I'd get a talking to at the very least. That would be very incompatible with my employment here, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks for the question, Phil. Kurt with a K has a question. Thanks for all the info in the October 2024 issue of your magazine regarding the safest car. Only puzzlement for me was the total absence of Subaru models in the list, given in past articles you've praised Subaru for safety features. Where do they fall down compared to the others you praised? I'm going to take that one because I wrote the article, and I'm going to tell you through every step of the editorial process on this. And there are folks who don't have to do with cars. The designers were asking me, where are the Subarus? Everyone was asking, where are the Subarus? And the answer is, if you look in the criteria that we set for, what makes a car kind of safe off the bat, most of the model year 2024 Subarus have optional blind spot warning and rear cross traffic warning. Blind spot warning has been proven to reduce collisions and collisions with injuries. So that's just a reason why they're not on there. The Solterra doesn't have automatic crash notification for a specific period of time. Automatic crash notification is another proven system that's proven to, if you get in a crash, that may help save your life. So in order to make the list, the cars had to have these as standard on all trims. And we only looked at the systems that there was sort of data out there showing that they actually were safety. And it's important to look at it on all trims.
Yeah. I mean, just for people playing the home game, this was an article specifically about the safest vehicles, saying here are the vehicles that basically provide all these the latest safety equipment standard. Mm-hmm. And we really want to make sure that it's standard, not that I have to go pay extra and add leather interior in order to get this, and not everyone gets that safety. So the ones on the list that you worked on, they have it all. These are some vehicles that don't. And hopefully Subaru makes some changes that actually just makes those systems standard like many other automakers have done.
Yeah, and just to put it out there, Kurt, if you're looking at a Subaru and you get one with blind spot warning and rear cross traffic warning, and it would have been on the list. So if you're interested in buying a Subaru, it's not that there's something about it that's unsafe.
Right.
It's just saying that don't buy that base model that's lacking these features that could keep you from having a crash.
And I think there's more to it too, that really what can help you on the road is not necessarily just the safety features on your car, but the safety features that are on the cars around you.
Yes.
So, you might be very safety conscious and want to make sure that you get all these features. But if the guy behind you didn't pay for his extra automatic emergency braking, whatever, and plows into you, you're still at risk. So it's just important that the fleet gets these features to make you safer as well.
Yeah. Herd immunity for rear end and blind spot collisions.
Yeah. The people who don't have safety on their mind are probably the ones who need these safety features most.
Yeah, exactly. So, keep driving safely out there, Kurt, and be comfortable with your purchase as long as you know what's on there. Yeah. So again, Kurt and Phil are going to get some swag, and you could too if you send your question to talkingcars@icloud.com, and we use it on air. So thanks so much for joining us, and it was a little bit of a longer episode, a little bit of a unique episode. Hopefully you learned something about the Cybertruck. Hopefully you learned something a little about Consumer Reports. And we'll talk cars again soon.